Yes, and at that moment she told me like, thank you very much for having saved all of my children. And I was like, it's completely normal. It's my job. I'm a business analyst. Oh, I didn't see it. It has started. Okay, hello everyone, and welcome to this new Odoo Insider session. Today, as you can see, so this is not Antoine Huvelle who is giving this session. This is me, so another Antoine Rousseau. But the topic of today will be the same as usual, so a free Q&A session. So feel free to ask any questions you like. Just before starting, I will also just take advantage of this small introduction to show you what are the next planned sessions for the Odoo Insiders that you can see. So in the future, for the next 2 weeks, let's say, it will be also a regular Q&A session. And then we'll have a dedicated session about the Swiss payroll localization that will be released in February. So it will be me and a payroll expert who will give you this session. And also just after a dedicated session to logistics. So if those two topics are really particularly interesting you can already, let's say, write it down in your agenda.
Hey chat, it's Arthur. I'm gonna send you the link so you can register if you're interested. Thanks.
Perfect. All right, and let's start. So I see already a lot of questions in the chat, so we can maybe start with the first one. I see a question from Abir. In dashboard or pivot view, can I make dates descending instead of ascending? So that's a good question. For that, let's maybe start so that everyone has the same let's say, status before diving into the topic. So when we mean pivot view, the idea is to start from a module. For example, if I go to my, I don't know, actually I don't have my sales app installed, so let's start by this. I usually like to take the sales application for the pivot view because, I mean, that's a very convenient one. Arthur, I don't know, is my screen shared because I don't see it on LinkedIn? All right. So now it's done. I'm just going now into my pivot view, indeed here. So maybe, yeah, just do it like this. And indeed, once it is installed, I can decide here to group it by date, like this. And, just display indeed my, let's say, my sales orders, in that case, with the quantity ordered per date. And indeed, when you are in front of a pivot view, what you can do is to sort the table based on the measures that you are making. And for example, here I could decide to sort it based on the quantity ordered. Make sure that the first position in my pivot view is based on the most quantity I've ordered, or in the other way, in the descending way, or ascending actually. Yeah, this one is ascending and this one is descending. Anyway, here what's interesting for us, in order to understand how it works, is that based on when you try to measure something, we cannot measure a date. So indeed, on the pivot view itself, we don't really have the choice about how the dates are going to be ascending or descending. And in this case, indeed, it will always be ascending. So we start from the date that is the earliest one. But that's the case on the pivot view. It's not the case if we decide to create a spreadsheet or a dashboard. And for that, let's start to create a spreadsheet from that pivot view. And let's dive now a bit into the topic here of our spreadsheet. When we take a look at our formula, what we can see is that by inserting this pivot view inside of my spreadsheet, I've kind of fixed it, which means that here each of the cell is, let's say, linked to a straight date, in that case, December 2024. And then the next one for January. So of course, if I keep it that way, it will always remain the two same cells, and I will always keep this kind of format. What I can do is to decide to adapt a bit the way my spreadsheet is presented. And for that, I could, for example, decide to here insert a column on the right, say that this cell is equal to today, like this, and then make sure that then this cell is equal to this one, but this cell is equal to eDate of this one minus 1. That I start indeed decreasing the dates here on my let's say on my A column. Once it is done, I can just go in my pivot formula here and replace the 12th 2024 by a reference to this value Oh yeah, like this, and then make it go until the bottom. And of course, I need also to adapt the value itself and make sure that here I replace as well this part of my formula. Yeah, here, so it will be A3, like this, and then make it decreased so that same as for the one on the left, of course, it's going to be adapted. In that case, by magic, of course, now my table is decreasing, and of course, it will be adapted now based on the January 2025. What is great as well is that I take as a reference the date of today. So of course, if I take a look at this table in a few months, of course it will be adapted based on the things that I have now, let's say, recorded in the future. I could also decide to make it a bit more, let's say, dynamic. And for that, I could replace today by a value that I provide myself in the spreadsheet. For that, I can create a filter. Let's say here it is my reference date or reference month, for example. Yes, maybe a bit more, precise. Like this, I can save and now say that here instead of today, I prefer to have as a formula an Odoo, a reference to my filter value. And so here I could set Odoo filter value and there select my reference month as being the value I want to make a reference to. And now I could decide indeed to select, let's say, March 2025, and accordingly my table is going to be adapted. Of course, I could decide to add this column. I don't want it to be visible. And you see then that the values that I have for now in January and December are going to move from, let's say, one line to another until by the end it's going to be disappear if I take a look in 2026. Now we see that my table has completely disappeared. If this table really suits my needs and I want to keep it for future use, let's say, and also allow my other users to use it, I could decide to add it to the dashboard, like this. Of course, give it a title as well. So here, let's say, quantity ordered descending months. And I just end up with this table. And every time I go and take a look, I see now the values in a descending way. So of course, so what we can just conclude about this topic is that it requires a bit, of course, of configuration to make it work. But as you see in a few minutes, if you know, of course, what you have to do, it goes quite fast. And you just end up indeed with the needs about what you expect. So yeah, I think it answers this first question. All right. I see then a second question about Tamrat, from Tamrat, who asked about the statement reconciliation in Odoo community. How? I guess so you ask how to be able to make some reconciliation in Odoo community. To be honest, I'm not really used to Odoo community version, but we can still take a look and see if, of course, we can find a way to do it. For that, also you don't give any version, so I will assume that we can start from the 18 version, and here click on the community run bot to take a look and see if we can indeed take a look at our statements. So here in the list of applications, I'm pretty sure we don't have access to accounting. Yes, it's true. So we are only invoicing in that case. But here in my bank journal, I can take a look at the transaction. Yes. All right. Okay. And maybe, okay, just once again, I'm just not so used to this. So statements. Okay, so I arrived at this menu. And here I could add a line. Yes, okay, and yes, provide the account number, the partner name, the amount. All right, let's try to test it in a quite simple way. Let's imagine that we have received $1,000 in that case. If we save and close, journal entry, yes, I need to link it here. So actually it's not going to be possible to do it that way. Okay, well, anyway, it's true that we have indeed some ways to make reconciliation. I can see it because you have still access to the reconciliation models as well here in the technical, well, in the configuration settings of the invoicing app. So it's probably possible indeed to make a link with the transaction. I'll maybe start also with from an invoice here and mark it as paid, see what's going on. So here, if I select indeed my bank journal, if I create my payment, yes, okay. I think I understand now how it works. I guess now if I go to my bank again, I will probably then find a reference. No, let me not. Yes, I'm sorry. Maybe it's not. Let's say I'm not really the best placed person to make sure that you can, that we can do it that way. The issue that we have here is that the main difference between the Odoo community version and the enterprise version is that we don't have the accounting features, as you may know in the enterprise version. I see here that indeed when we can mark an invoice as paid directly here from the interface, something that is not possible indeed as well on the enterprise version. So maybe the process is slightly different. And yeah, probably here as also when the way to create transaction is also something a bit different that I'm not so used about. So it's probably better if I don't go too much into the details about that topic and see how it's going on. But if Tamara, you have maybe a more precise question, maybe you tried and you just fail in one step and you want to see if we can find a solution, don't hesitate. But yeah. Okay, next question from Abir. Same about the dashboard application. Okay, so in dashboard, can I show data from the last 2 years only or coming? I mean, if I have events dates, I want to show events in dates year before and year after. Okay, so you would like to apply some kind of filter to be able to select then, as I understand, yes, so among let's say a window of 2 years, if that's the question, if I understand properly the question. Well, what I have in mind directly, of course, is the fact that when you, and we'll do it again, if I insert again here my spreadsheet, or let's say my documents, my data, sorry, my pivot view in a spreadsheet. Here, if you just take a look at the filters settings, we have here a few options about how to make sure to select the right time range. So for now, I used month and quarter, but we could also use a different one in that case, the from and to. And if I try now, like this, and here, for example, I could indeed link it to the order date of my table. Now I can have more flexibility in the way I design my filters. I could say, indeed, I want to start in January 2024 and up to, let's say, January 2026. And indeed, now I can have a window a bit larger among 2 years. And of course, I see the data according to that filter. So maybe it's a way to answer your question. I'm not sure, but if it's not the case, of course, once again, don't hesitate to make it a bit more precise and we can discuss it again. Okay, next question about Sarah. Arthur, I will ask you to not select it anymore so that I can read it. Yes, perfect. Okay. We aim to reimburse an employee without utilizing the payroll module. The expenses are recorded in the expenses journal and the reimbursement will be made from the Eurobank journal. Could you clarify the correct procedure from transferring the amount from one journal to another? Additionally, what is the appropriate method for reconciling these transactions? Okay, so here what's a bit surprising to me, so here I guess the idea is indeed to be able to record your expenses, at least to allow the employees to record their expenses in Odoo and then be able to be reimbursed accordingly. Here you say that you don't want to use a payroll module, but indeed it's not mandatory. If I take a look, once again, I'm just going to install the expense applications that we can check it together. Perfect. So now if I go to my expense module and take a look at the settings, we see indeed that there is an option here to reimburse the employee in the payslip. That the amount is just part of then the net salary, for example, that's going to be reimbursed to the employee. If it's not the way you want it to be reimbursed, you can indeed proceed in a different way. For example, here I can take one of the expense that I have here in my app. I create the report, I submit it to the manager, I approve, and once it is done, indeed, by default, you will post it in a specific journal. This journal could be indeed an expense journal or the vendor bills journal. Anyway, the type of the journal should be an expense, let's say a purchase journal. What is the exact name? Let's check to make sure that we use the correct one. Yeah, a purchase type journal. So it could be vendor bills, as I said, but it could be as well here this expense journals. So, I mean, here the settings can be done by you. It's where you can find it is in the expense application. If I go in the configuration and settings, I will see here the by default employee expense journal I can use. If in that case, for example, I don't use any, let's say, settings by default, Odoo is going to take the first one in my list. Here, in that case, it was the first purchase journal was the vendor bills, and so that's why here I linked it to my journal vendor bills. But in that case, if you want to link the expense to one specific journal, of course you can do it. Your question about how can I just, let's say, move let's say an expense or an accounting entry from one journal to another is a bit strange, I would say. This process, of course, could be done, but maybe you just misunderstand the fact that you can select the journal from the start. So that's why I just want to make it even more accurate. But all right, so what I did here is indeed to validate my journal entry, and so here it is. So indeed, that's exactly as you have with the vendor bills that you can find in your in your accounting app. If you are then part of the US or the CIPA zone in Europe, you are able then to record a payment on that bill and to send the payment to your bank to automate the reimbursement of your employee in that way. So that's something that you can do indeed in Odoo. If you are part of another country, where the let's say the payment automation with some kind of automation at least is not possible, of course you need to do it manually. But at least by proceeding that way, you are able to indeed post the expense in your accounting in a specific journal and make sure that at the end it's going to work. If for some reason indeed the journal was not posted in the right place, when it was still reset, let's say in the draft stage, you had the possibility. Oh no, you did not. But I think it's because I already posted it. Let's try again. Let's come back to another expense and see if there is a way at some point where I can maybe decide to change the journal that I use. So let's start again. If I now go to my journal entry, yes, here I can change it. So I could say, no, but I want this one to be set to expense. So that's where you could indeed make this kind of switch in between the journals. And then you can confirm it and post it in the corresponding journal. So yeah, that's it. Then what I would say is probably indeed if you for example, decided to, if you did not post it in the right journal, then there's different ways of seeing it, but it would be maybe not the best option, but it's of course to create a credit note, create the bill again, but now in the right journal. There is also a way, but then it's more related to the account that you use. When you go then to the for example, accounting app in the journal items, you can of course also decide from there, I think it's this one, yeah, to change the account that is used. If you made a mistake and you need to use another account, that's something as well that you can do. Of course, you can do it if you did not activate the hash settings about the accounting entries, which prevents you, of course, to modify them afterwards. But if you have still this option, of course, you can do it. So either by changing here the account or using the feature that allows you to move an entry from one account to another. So okay. All right. Next question about from Veronica. Can we make a quiz style personality test to have a different output based on the responses of the person taking the quiz? Okay, good question. Let's maybe try and take a look. I guess that if we wanted to make some kind of quiz like this, it would probably be, let's say, thanks to the survey application. So once again, I'm going to install it. It's already the case. Perfect. And here, if we take a look at the questions we can add, here I think indeed that there is, there is a way when you create questions on a survey to decide if yes or not this question can be displayed or not, depending on some other questions. For example, here as we see, we can have a look at all the possible answers that were let's say previously recorded before that question, and say indeed, if let's say the person answered yes to this question, I want to display this corresponding question. So in that case, what you would need to do is just to make sure that you properly define your survey based on the different answers that are provided to lead them in a different direction. To make it work, personally, what I would do is first to think about it outside of Odoo. I would just make maybe a decision tree, make sure that everything is properly clear in my mind, and then I dive into Odoo and I try to reproduce all of those, let's say, different branches in my survey, and then of course test it to make sure it's going to work. But yes, I think it's as simple as this. All right, next question from Salia. I want to ask, if we create a website in Odoo Online and use a domain name provided by Odoo, can we have a professional email address? For example, when sending an email via Gmail, would it appear as username at domainname.odoo.com? So that's indeed a good question. So by default, you're right. So when you just create a database, it's the case, for example, on my database here, I have a specific domain name that is provided by Odoo. So indeed here, edu INRS insider 18.odoo.com, which is indeed my email. But it's slightly different from the emails that I used to connect to my database. In that case, if I go to the settings and I take a look at my user profile, I will see it is linked to the email address inrs@odoo.com. So of course my email address is still different, and that's important to keep that difference because this email address is there to allow you to connect, maybe to reset your password, and some of the things that make sure that you should have, let's say, an inbox linked to it and everything. But your question is still interesting. It means, okay, can I, in a way, benefit from that domain name to make things, let's say, a bit more professional, or at least a bit more consistent when it comes to communicate with my clients? There is, I think, two ways of answering this question. The first one is that, as you may know, in a lot of different places, actually in Odoo, you can benefit from email alias. That's the case, for example, as for the sales teams. The fact that here you can benefit indeed from the email server from Odoo and just, let's say, add an email alias before the domain name to make sure that you can communicate this email alias, in that case, to generate opportunities in your database. That's the case in the sales teams. You can have it as well in the project application, in the help desk, in the accounting as well. So a lot of different places where you can indeed use this email alias. But you're right that when you decide, and we can maybe make a test, if I go in the sales app and decide to send here a quotation or, let's say, an order by email. So it's going to use a dedicated email template in that case, which is called order send order confirmation, for example, this one. And so when I send it, if I then go in my emails list, let's see if it is still there. No, I think I need to first, of course, remove the auto delete. So yes, maybe let's try with this one. It will be probably, it will make a lot of sense. So if I try again, come to one of my order and send it with my here email send quotation, and I send it. So as I remove the auto delete, I will be able to find it in my emails queue there, which is this one. And I will see that by default, indeed, it has been sent from, in that case, that email address. Okay, we'll see why. Actually, I was not expecting that, but we'll see indeed why it's this one that has been selected. And we see as well here the email address that is going to be used for the answer. And so in that case, catchall at edu INRS insider. So why is it the case? So first, it's interesting because I did not, as I said, expect this one to be used. Maybe what we can do is first to take a look at the email templates here, and the one that we discussed, send quotation. In that case, if I take a look at my email template, I will see what is the from email address to be used. And in that case, we see it is first the one from the salesperson assigned to the sales order, and we're going to take the email formatted of this salesperson. I know it because, of course, I can read Python code. It's some kind of magic. But of course, if you are used to Odoo, that's something that you can do pretty easily. But let's start maybe with the process to be able to do it. When I take a look here at the from definition of my email template, I see first the object. Of course, that's the sales order I start from. And then I go to the user ID field. In that case, it was a sales order 30. All right, I can come back to it here. Or in the other info, I have my salesperson field, which is here. If I activate debug mode, I will be able to see what is the technical name of this field. And I will basically see it. This name is user ID. And then I can go to Michel admin, user. And here I see that my email address is this one, but it is a login address. While in that case, it's going to make a reference to the email formatted of my user. And I think it's slightly different. And that's why it's interesting to take a look at it. Maybe what you can try is to go there and take a look at the email. Well, I'm just going to type it correctly. formatted. Yes, exactly. And we see that the name of the value of the field in that case is this value. Here, that's because I am on a demo database. I installed demo data, so Odoo has overwritten here the email formatted of my user. It's a bit, let's say, how it happened. I'm pretty sure that if I go to my user profile and go on the contact partner, yeah, that's where I can see it. But here, if I decide to type it again and add nrs@odoo.com, and if I, come back to my sales order and do it again and send again my quotation. No, my order in that case, because it has been confirmed. I'm pretty sure now that my email will not be sent, yes, from this email address that we saw, but from nrs@odoo.com. So we see now indeed that it is linked indeed to that email address. But I could decide for some reason that it's not the one I want to use. And to come back to your question then, is the fact of maybe just adding then, let's say, a different email address. And that's something you can do. But let's say you need to check, of course, if it makes sense. But when you just configure your email template, you could say, no, but I want here to use, for example, info, or let's say sales at, and I just add then here the domain name of my database. And now if I start again and send again my quotation here, well, I could do it with this one as well, but let's keep maybe the same example to make sure that we compare the same things. If I know, no, it's not what I wanted to do here. If I just open here my email template and I send it again, now in my email list, it will be sent, you see, by this email address. So that's a way to do it. Anyway, when they reply to your email address, they will still reply to this one. But the risk, is that they still see the sales@edu and nrsinsider18.o.com. They decide to reply to it, and maybe nothing will happen because this email address is not linked to anything. You don't have an account, an inbox linked to this one, except, of course, if you use it as an email alias somewhere in your database. But I mean, it'll probably here give you a nice overview about what is possible or not. Okay, next question. Here in Odoo Online, how can I map the confirmation date of purchase order in my vendor bill? Account move in my custom date field means I want to display the confirmation date of purchase order in account move. Okay. That's, I think, a very good question. So indeed, if I, once again, start from the basics, I just there come on one of my purchase order, I can indeed see my confirmation date that is displayed there, which is nice. Okay, I can receive my product. Very good. I need to provide lot and serial number. Okay, so here, let's generate them. Okay, validate. Perfect. I create my bill, and indeed on this bill, by default, I don't have any information linked to the confirmation date of my purchase order. Here, we still need to think that it's not only maybe important in your case to add the information there in the, let's say, on the back end, but maybe to add it as well on the PDF, or maybe to add it as well on the portal overview. Anyway, the first step to make sure it works is first to make sure that you, let's say, first add it to your model here, vendor bill. So what is great is that you always have a link in between the vendor bills and the purchase order, as you can see here with the corresponding smart button. So if I, once again, activate my debug mode, which is a very nice tool that I use a lot, I can go and take a look on the fields and see there is, in a way, a link with the purchase model that I have. And indeed, I see here that I have a purchase ID model, linked, let's say, a many-to-one link that allows to link my vendor bills to my purchase order. So if it is the case, then I'm pretty sure that if I, yes, okay, I just kind of lose my pass. I'll just come back there. Yes. If I use Studio, so I use Studio because it's easier in that case, but of course you could do it as well manually if you decide to do it. I could probably decide to add a related field, and this related field to start from the purchase order. Here, select the confirmation date, and make it appears or not on my model. Here, it's true that I should say that it's not appearing for now. So let's try if it's the case or not, but yeah, it's true that by default here, the value is not displayed. Let's start again, maybe to make sure it's the case. Yes, okay, it's okay. So the link is not starting, it's not working like this. I think we should do it in a slightly different way, and for that, there is a nice format that I like to see, you know, because of course Google is your best friend in that case. If you try to make, let's say, add a field from SO to invoice, because that's, let's say, the form entry that I know, you will be able to see some, let's say here, explanation about how to do it. Especially here, the one from Alexandre, which is one of my colleagues, which explains that you can do it by going into that following way. And if it works for the sales order, it would work exactly the same way for the purchase order. And that's what we can try first to see if we can reproduce it or not. The first thing is to add the information on the sales order line model. All right, let's try to do it. So I need, once again, just to start, yes, from there. And I can go in my list view on my purchase order line and try to add a related field from the order reference, yes, and confirmation date. Correct, so now we see it appears. What I can do is, of course, to rename it. All right, that I can as well here know the name of my field. And I will just add it by default. Of course, I don't want it to be visible in my view. So that's the first step. The second step here, if I follow the step, is just to add it now on my account move line. So once again, so here I can go in my vendor bills, open studio. I go in my account move line, and here I can do the same and add the related field from, let's say in that case, my purchase order line, yes, and add the confirmation date. And it was confirmation alone. Yes, at least it is a field that I created myself. Perfect, it's appearing again. So let's say confirmation 2 in that case. And once again, I add it by default. And finally, what I can do is to add it now instead of the field that I tried to create. So this one I can remove it from my view. Just because I saw that question quickly on the chatter as well. So here, you know, when I remove a field from the view, it does not delete the field from the database, okay? So it just removed it up from the view as it stands. So if you want to remove the field afterwards from the database, you need to go in the technical settings and delete the field. And you can do it, of course, if it is not used in any views. So that's why you need to proceed step by step and first remove it from your view. And then in my existing fields, I can probably, no, I need to first, again, create a rated field, which will now start from my journal items, and then select my confirmation 2. Great. And now, as you can see, my confirmation date has been added to my vendor bill. That's pretty nice, but maybe, as I said, it's not, let's say, everything. Oh, let's say the only step that you want to perform, because you may need to add this information maybe on the PDF as well. For that, of course, then you need to go in the, let's say, the report itself. For example, here, the vendor bills, let's say, here, PDF. Oh, it's empty. I don't know why. Maybe let's take this one. Yeah, okay. And what you could decide to do is to add, you know, this information, let's say, along with the information that we have at the top here. So maybe next to the invoice date or the due date. And for this purpose, you can go in the XML and try to add information, let's say, at that step here. So for example, next to, so you can copy and paste this part of the code. When I say copy and paste, it's not exactly true, of course, because you need to proceed with an inherited view. But if you make an inherited view to add something just after this piece of code, then you can display as well the confirmation date on your PDF. For the topic, which would maybe, let's imagine that you want to add it as well on the let's say the portal view of your vendor. It's slightly different in that case because of course you need to modify the view of your portal. So you need to do it again, but at this step on the HTML probably of the portal view. I hope it is clear. So at least you see how to proceed again step by step to make it work. Yes, but maybe a bit after. Okay, great. All right. Next question. In the rental module V18, automatic transfers are not generated in replenishments due to shortage between warehouse. Is there a limit? In sales, it works well. In rental, it does not. Okay, so let me try to understand again the question. Okay, so I guess what you expect, if I summarize the need, and once again, I'm maybe first going to take the example of sales and then we'll see in rental if it works or not. So when I just here decide to create a quotation, I can select the warehouse I want to use to let's say to deliver the goods. So where will I start from? But maybe indeed on that warehouse I will not have enough goods to be used, and so I need to replenish my goods. And there is different way of for doing that. I could decide to purchase goods to my vendors. I could decide to manufacture goods in my company, or I could decide to replenish goods from another warehouse. And that's something indeed that you can find if you especially go on your warehouse settings and decide to create a second warehouse like this. All right. That I have now my two different warehouses. And indeed, I could define on the warehouse number 2 that I want to resupply, or maybe on the warehouse number 1 then. Oh no, okay, on the number 2, to resupply the goods from the warehouse number 1. That it means that if I need goods on the warehouse number 2, I'm going to look for them at that moment on the warehouse number 1. So this settings is standard, but then I need to define what is the need of a good. How do I know if I need a good somewhere? You could say, Antoine, it's logical, like you just make a sales order, so you need the good. But it's not exactly true, because you need to give a reference then on the product to make sure that Odoo is going to understand how it works. And so for that, let's try to create a product which we call NRS product. Like that, I'm going to track the inventory of this product. I'm going to say that I have some units for this product in WH stock. Let's imagine, let's say 10 units. Like this, but I'm going to deliver it from the second warehouse where I don't have any goods in my warehouse. And I need to explain once again that in that second warehouse that I have, I need indeed to replenish it. For that, I need to activate two things. First is to say, yes, I want to replenish my goods from the main warehouse if I need to. So that's the first setting. And the second setting is to create what we call the reordering rules, to explain that this product needs to be resupplied. And let's imagine here with a 0, but not on WH stock, but on WH2. So that, of course, it is in my second warehouse that is going to happen. If I do that, and now try to sell those goods. I know, of course, the question is linked to rental, but I just want to first check if it works on sales and then to reproduce it on rental just after. I select here my second warehouse to make it work, and I select here my NRS product. And let's imagine I want to sell 5 units. Of course, no. Of course, yeah, I know I should not delete my line. Of course, here my icon, my small icon here about the stock is in red, because in my warehouse number 2, I don't have any units for NRS product. Of course, if I had selected here my other warehouse, it will be in green, because of course I have some unit in my stock. Okay, great. So that's it. Now if I confirm it and see what's going on, of course it is still in red. I still don't have any units of NRS product in my stock. And indeed here let's say my quantity cannot be filled, my products are not available. What I can take a look at is in my inventory app and see if, in a way, Odoo has created some kind of transfers to make sure that this product is going to be delivered. For that, I can take a look at the replenishment here and see if my NRS product, yes, is going to be targeted by anything. So here I see that, okay, in WH2, I have still a forecast quantity of 0. Let's see what's happening. Okay, because, okay, but I have still, yes, here on the rows number 2, 5 units that are incoming and 5 units that are outgoing. And the 5 units incoming are from this one. So I can see here that something has indeed been created to make the transfer of the goods from one warehouse to another. And indeed, that's the case that I can see here. So the goods are, let's say, going to be delivered from one warehouse to another. No, of course, no, it's not the case. No, it is. Destination location received from my company San Francisco. Yeah, but of course, first I need to make a delivery. So I guess here, if I go to my delivery orders, to inter-warehouse transit, yes, that's the one. Okay, so here, of course, I should not get it. I should not guess it. I should know, of course, before what is going on. And if I want to know what's going on, I just need to go in my inventory app. And on my products, just to make an extra explanation, I clicked on the rule explained I want to make my replenishment. The rule is, let's say, from warehouse 1 to warehouse number 2. And this route, here I can find it if I go to my settings, activate my route. I will see, let's say, how this route is working. And especially, I will there find the information that this route here is going to make two things, two different actions. The first one is to take goods from WH stock into an inter-warehouse transit location, and the second step into my inter-warehouse transit into my WH2 stock. The first one is here a delivery order from my main warehouse. The second one is a receipt order from my second warehouse. If I want to make it work, I need first to deliver my goods into the inter-warehouse transit, and then to receive my goods. And that's this first action here, is to deliver my goods into my, let's say, my inter-warehouse transit. I do it. Here I disable SMS. Very good. And then I can see my next transfer just at the top. And now it's a receipt of my good. And I can validate. And now if I come back to my sales order that I just created, I will see that I have now my units, of course, that are available. And I can validate it and make sure that I can now invoice my client based on that need. Okay, so that was it for the sales. Now, what can I do with the rental module? Let's check. So first, I'm going to install the rental app, of course. So taking a bit of time. All right. And if I go to my rental application, let's take a look. Maybe if you have some settings to activate. I'm not sure it's the case. Activate to use stock deliveries. Yes, that's what I want to activate. All right, and let's do something pretty basic. Let's imagine that I just want to, once again, deliver my NRS product for renting them. I start, once again, from my second warehouse. So I should not have any quantities. That's right. Okay, let's maybe take 2 units in that case. And rental period, okay, it's 1 day, why not? And we confirm. So here the idea indeed is to see if you have the same process that has been done. Let's check. So for that, once again, the first thing that I would do is to go in replenishment and take a look at my NRS product. It's still at 0, so okay, let's try to see it here. And again, no, actually something that has been created. So I think it worked, basically, also for the rental case. So as I said again, so here we need first to make a delivery. It's a delivery that's going to go in my inter-warehouse transit. Well, let's try to take a look at here. This one, yes, I validate. And then I go to my receipt. And that's probably this one. Yeah, I can validate as well. And now, if I come back to my rental order, which is this one, now I have my goods. And so I can deliver them to my client. So I think it works. Jose, maybe you just did not configure it exactly the same way as I did. I think it may need, let's say meet your requirements to do it that way. I know it's a bit, let's say, like you have different ways of doing it, of course, but I think that playing back with the reordering rules in that case is probably the best case to make sure that all of those actions are indeed automatically created. Okay, next question from Nina. How can I link a picture on Odoo website to a category? So when someone clicks anywhere on the picture banner, it redirects you to the category. I guess by category you mean a product category of the website. If it is the case, okay, let's try to once again reproduce it. Okay, but maybe first I'm going to install the e-commerce app. If of course the category that you mentioned is of course a product category, to see how it's going to happen. Because I know we can make some call to action, of course, on the website to make sure that indeed you can, let's say, bring some buttons. But I don't know if you can link a button, let's say, hide a button in below just an image to make sure that if he clicks on it, it's going to bring him to the corresponding page. Okay, well, I think we can skip it. Here, let's just take this one as a template and see how it goes. If I go to my shop, so I have here my categories. If I click on desk, you see, so first what I just want to notice is that each category has a specific URL. So indeed, then what we could do, which is once again not an answer to the question, but as I said, is to make a call to action somewhere. Here, can I find it or not? Say there is appointment button. I think it would do the same, but maybe there's a button. Well, here a button. So that's probably the thing that I wanted to have. Yes, and this button, you know, you can link it here to a specific page, which is this one. And so here you could decide indeed to use it and to link it to your specific category on your shop. So here, shop. So here I have a page per product. So for example, if I put, okay, here a product, I mean, it's the same principle, but then if I click on this button, I arrive to this product exactly. I could, of course, do it different way, if in a different way, if I use it for a category. If I, for example, save this one, I can edit it once more and change it here and put this page. If I save, yes, so here I'm brought to the desk page, so probably something that you already know. But then how can I make sure that you can do it in a different way? It's because here, of course, it's a button. I'm not sure there's a way you can change the background as well. Of course, you can not really, let's say, add a picture. So here I see insert media, but let's say desk. Okay. Let's try. If I know, just remove the name of the button. No. Discard. No, cancel. Just going to make a comeback. Yes. Yes, my desk. Yes, okay. I think I'm just playing a bit too much now on the tool. That's probably something that you can do then if you go, you know, into the HTML code of the browser. I'm not sure you can link indeed let's say a button to an image directly without having the button still appearing. So I would say yes. It's just that I'm just not let's say confident enough to go into the code and show you how you would insert the picture, let's say above the button, and make sure that you can use it. But I'm probably sure that if you do some web design at the moment, you can do it. So yeah, that's it. All right. Let's go to the next question. Can you show a way to filter sent quotations with a date older than 30 days before current date? Yes, I can. I can. Yes, okay. I can because I appreciate a lot an app which is called Payroll, in which there is a filter that does exactly the same thing, almost at least. You will see that, and I think you just apply the same process in your case, it's going to work, and we can try it together to see if it's going to do the job. So, because in that app, we have, let's say, a filter which is showing the raw countries of the current month. And this notion of current month is a dynamic content because it's not always like the same month, of course. So inside of the filter, then you have a small piece of code, of Python code, that allows you to create then a dynamic filter. Here's the idea. We need to see together how this code is generated and maybe, of course, try to adapt it to make sure that it's going to work in the case of a send quotations. So if I go in my payroll app and go in my work entries, here the filter that I told you about is this one, current month. And if I look at the details of this filter, I have this, which is the from and the to that I can use. What you can do is that if let's say here I record it as my favorite filter, like this, and then I activate debug mode, I can access the definition of my filters from there, and I could decide to just copy that piece of text and go in my sales app here and decide to do the same. It's just that I have a question that I'm not sure about, is that I don't know if the information of a quotation send is stored somewhere in the database. It's just that it's maybe the first question to be asked. If I do it like this, so we move to the quotation sent. All right, but does it mean that we store it somewhere? About the date? Yes, no. No, we don't have it, which is an issue, of course, because in that case, if you don't have really the date to make a reference to, it's going to be a bit more complicated. I'm not sure it was this one, the quotation date, but creation date of direct sent orders, converted. Yeah. The thing is that, okay, in that case, what you could do is to say maybe manually, okay, I send it today, so I just set maybe manually the date of the quotation today, which is maybe relevant in most of the case, and maybe then use this date, the date order, to be used, to apply the filter, and maybe make sure as well that you just target also, let's say the filters that are in the quotation sent status. Let's try to do it, and we'll see if it works or not. So let's say orders from the last 40 days. All right. So here I'm on my sales order, and here I just put my code, but instead of date stop, I took that date order here and here. So it applies the same principle, and here I think I just need to put days with 14 to make sure that it's going to do the same principle. All right, so now I have a filter then that's going to show me all the, yes, I just need to refresh my page. Yes, all the orders from the last 40 days based on the date or the field. And then I could just make sure, of course, to also filter on the status quotation sent. And this whole filter then is the one that I want to use. And so once again, what I could do is to save again the research and say then orders sent from the last 14 days. I save, and then that's a filter that you can use then on a regular basis, because it's going to be updated again and again to make it dynamic, to check only the values from those 14 days. Okay, so yeah, those, I think it's once again a nice way to answer the question. Okay, all right, next question from Antoine. Antoine Gilbert, so ask us a question in French. I'm going to maybe translate it directly. So how can we attach restaurant receipt or a parking receipt to a payment in the module accounting bank? Well, I don't think you should, let's say, link it to the payment itself. I think you should link it to the invoice, to the vendor bills in that case, that you create in your database. For that, let's once again make maybe a small refresh about the beginning of this session. We discussed about the expense app. And for example, let's imagine that instead of the travel by car, as an employee, I record the fact that I attached, let's say, a receipt from a restaurant or a receipt from a parking. And so it will be there, in my attachment. Let's try, if I just make a screenshot, and I will save it here. All right. And if I attach this receipt, it will be then by part of my expense. And then if I create my report, submit it to the manager, approve, I get a journal entry. And in this journal entry, I see my attachment. So that's all the principle, to make sure that when you scan, all of your receipts, they end up in your accounting. Because this this document is a proof that you create the vendor bill. You know, it's where you store it, but it's not the fact that you paid for it. Of course, what you could say is, yes, but on the ticket it is written down that I paid for it. Yes, but still, that's where you should find it. Because at the end, what you will get in your, let's say, accounting app is the fact that you just get, a transaction, positive or negative. In that case, it would be negative, that you paid for it. And then you're going to reconcile this, let's say, payment. Okay, let's see if we just do the step fully. I think it was, no, it wasn't this one. Well, anyway, actually, maybe you can take this one, it's the same. Now you take the amount, of course, here of 289. So if I go in my transaction here and create a negative amount on 289, payment of the parking, well, then I can simply here find the same expense in my accounting and I can validate. And of course, the payment that I received will be linked to my bill, and so everything will be linked together with the same attachment that I had let's say, attached before, because here we can, of course, like both send the expense report with the attachments, but as I said, it is only also, let's say, attached to the bill, and also the payment, which is here. So that's how I would answer it. I think it makes more sense, but of course, don't hesitate to tell me if it's not the case. Okay, maybe one last question, and then we'll take a small break. I want to calculate percentages in profit and loss report. I want to create a dashboard with percentage and use months as a filter. Okay, well, when we say percentages, I guess that's because you want to compare the value of your profit and loss report with something else. So that's maybe with the previous year, or maybe from a reference value. I don't know. But indeed, you just want to introduce a small computation in your profit and loss. In that case, it's true that it's not something that is so, let's say, so possible when you just take a look at your profit and loss report. I think there is still a way to compare it with the previous period. Yes, and for example, 2 period. Yes, like this. And so we can see directly that some percentage is appearing. If it's not enough, or maybe you didn't know about this tool, indeed you could do it in the dashboard. I will not, let's say, do it, let's say, in front of you now, because it will take a bit of time, but I will explain to you the process. The thing is that here, your profit and loss report is, let's say, organized based on some criteria. The fact that, for example, here you see like the gross margin, and then you see the financial income. And so all of them are usually grouped by account type. That's the case. If I go there and look at each of my, let's say, definition, I will see here, that some accounts are used to organize it like this. And so the purpose now that we are going to do is to start from the journal items that we have in our accounting app, which are basically all the basics we need to start from when we want to create an accounting report, and organize those data based, for example, on the account type. So it's not exactly, it's not only the only truth that you can apply, but that's still a way to do it. So if here I, for example, I select my type, yes, but that's from the journal. Yes, from the account, anywhere. Here, it's not really what is important, but you need to rebuild in a way the logic that you have in your profit and loss report. You should not here make any filter based on the period. Okay, so you keep it very basic, very generic, so that you don't, let's say, filter on the values regarding the date of the accounting entries. And then you insert it in a spreadsheet. You create a filter, there, to make sure that you can indeed filter on the period that you are referring to, like this, and you link it then to the date of the accounting entry. But for the rest, here, about the computation of the percentage, well, that's some Excel stuff, so it's not a big deal. But of course, you just need to organize your, let's say, your document so that all the different categories are appearing. And yes, and so there is a process for that. We are used to, that's something that we do also at Odoo. Just note that you have also a service for that. So if you want to be, let's say, yes, to have some support in that process, we have some experts in Odoo that are doing this kind of report on a very regular basis on spreadsheet and dashboard, based on the needs, of course, of the companies. And it works very fine. And so that's something that you can discuss together. Okay, I propose then to make a short break, a 5-minute break, and then I come back for the rest of the Odoo Insider session. Hi again. So I hope you enjoyed this break. So let's start, yes, again with the question that remain about in the chatter. So there's the first one from Kickoff Highlights on YouTube, who asks us, when I install Odoo installer, can I use it offline? And if it is possible, and is it possible to add more custom modules to that? If yes, how also show me how to configure it on Windows? First, well, it's true that when you, let's say, first about how to install Odoo. So that's very simple, but that's something that you have in the documentation as well. So here, just jump into the English version of it. There. Oh, no. It's not EN, probably. Yes, I can send it here. So yeah, that's where you can find how to install Odoo, let's say, on your own server or locally, if you want to. Indeed, you have a documentation that is, let's say, precise for it about Windows. So I would just then, let's say, advise you to follow those steps and make sure that it works. I think on Windows, yes, here, yeah, so it's slightly different than the one from you have on Linux, where you just mainly act with some commands in the chatter. About your questions, is it possible to use it offline? No, it is not. It's not possible to use Odoo offline on most of the apps. I think the only one where you can do it is a point of sale. So once you have a point of sale session open, you can indeed be, let's say, unconnected. And then when you close it, you need to be connected, of course, to make the synchronization with Odoo regarding everything that you did during the session. But I think that's the only case that I have in mind where you can use it offline. So, and that works. That's true for the case if you are, let's say, on-premise, online, or on SH. It's always the same principle. About your question, is it possible to add more custom modules? I don't exactly understand why you say more, what you compare it to, because in that case, I mean, you just indeed can install custom modules, especially if you are on SH or on-premise. I mean, if I go to the Odoo app stores, I mean, I can just open any of them here in the interface. You can see here indeed where you can install it on SH on-premise, and then you can, let's say, pay it and then deploy it on your database if you want to. But this kind of apps, I mean, you don't have a limit regarding the number of apps that you can install. It's something that is up to you, depending on the complexity of the apps, depending on, let's say, how much you feel comfortable to use them and to maintain them also in the future. So yeah, there is no, let's say, one exact truth about it. I could not really show you that, let's say, process today, simply because I don't have a Odoo installation on my PC, and it would take a bit of time to install it together. But yeah, maybe you can keep it for a next session that you can have with, let's say, more technical developers from Odoo. I know that we have sometimes some Q&A sessions like this, to maybe go a bit, let's say, deeper in this idea. But in that question, I just don't exactly understand what you mean by more and what is the comparison. All right. Next question from Ilgar on Twitch. And that time, I have a problem with Odoo website. I cannot edit translated text again. If you made mistake in translation, you have only one chance to make translation. That's an interesting question. Let's check actually. So what I'm going to do is to activate second language in my database. So I speak French, so I'm going to activate French in that case. All right. Yes, I could also, no, I will not check the box actually. It's going to be more interesting if I don't do it. But first, of course, I activate my language, and then I need to go on my website, settings, and make sure that I can use more than one language. So here, I will activate as well French in that case. Once it is done, my main language is still English, so that's where I'm going to edit my website. And every time, of course, I edit it, I need as well to, let's say, translate the content that I have added. And so, for example, here, I could decide to translate this part. And for that, when I click on edit, no, or maybe I need to refresh my page. That's strange, because usually there is a button that allows you to translate your content, but here I don't see it. I'm a bit confused because, of course, that's something that is probably new in the interface of what we have, let's say, on Odoo 18. Okay. If I go there, of course, I will not have the possibility on the right to translate it again. No. But no, of course I need to go to French if I want to translate it. No. Okay.
Maybe change your
yeah,
country.
Okay, no, I know how to see it now. Okay, so indeed I need to jump to the language and then translate it from that button. So that's good. Indeed, so I had this pop-up telling me that indeed some content can be translated. Okay, I can leave it. And here, for example, if I decide to rename it here and say plus plus, so that this one is considered as being translated. If I save and then do it again, so you see here, I should have again the possibility to translate it. So, well, based on my testing on Odoo 18, I would say that, let's say this is not an exclusive way, like you don't have only one chance to translate it. Maybe in your case, let's say it's a more specific block that you cannot really access again when you try to translate. So I don't say that you are lying, of course, but maybe your case is slightly different from the one that I have now. So once again, if you want to give more details, feel free to do it in the chat. Okay, next question from Nathanael, who asks us to show how to, let's say, possibly import an opening balance in journal entry in Odoo community. So same, as I said earlier, we are not used at Odoo to work with the community version, let's say, on implementation. But I mean, I can still, by curiosity, take a look and see if we can do it. So if I jump, yes, to a community version and dive into the invoicing menu once again, which is where I will be able to take a look at my journal entries. Yes, this one here. Yes, but is there a way to create some miscellaneous operations? I need to check. Yes, if I go there, journal entries, okay. Is there a way to import it? No. But I can still here create a new one. Okay, so there is still a way to create an entry manually. It's just that here I don't have the possibility to add some lines. Let's try if that's something that I need to activate in the settings. But I don't feel like it's a case. To be honest, I would say once again that it's probably a limitation of the Odoo community version. As I said, in Odoo community, you don't have access to the accounting app, but only the invoicing app. And the purpose of invoicing is not to be able to, of course, make the whole accounting in Odoo community. So probably, indeed, the way of managing also here the journal entries for miscellaneous operation is slightly different. I'm sorry, because maybe there is a way, but I don't really know well the interface, and I don't see at least a way to click and to create new miscellaneous operations. If it's possible to create some, I know and you have access to do it, and you probably know then better than me how to do it. Indeed, that's something that you should pay attention to when you click on import records. And in that case, you can indeed create your, let's say your Excel template to make sure that you can import it again, so that I can still maybe give some piece of answers. Because if it's possible to create some miscellaneous operations in a community, the principle is the same. You just need to create like something that is very similar to this. Let's say opening balance 2024, let's imagine, and we just make it for the end of last year, like this. Like I can create it manually, and then I can generate a file to be able to import it again. So here, if I type opening balance, yes, I can then create an import template where I can simply remove all of this because I already defined it. But I can then, from my journal items, define all the columns that I want to use. In that case, it would be, for example, the debits. Yes, I need first to go. Yes, here for example, the label, of course, the debit, the credit, the partner maybe, and the account, of course. This one. And this then template that we can see here is the one indeed that you can use as well if you want to import things in Odoo. So once again, here I show it. I know on the enterprise version. But I think the principle of the import is the same in community, but I simply don't know if it is possible or not to create miscellaneous operations in community, because I don't see the option here in the interface. Okay, anyway, let's go to the next question. How employees can enter their own personal information in the employee module. Indeed, when they are logged in as employee, they only have access to professional informations, CVs and badges. That's a good question. Actually, I think this question is pretty simple, but you're right. In fact, when you have, let's say, when you have a user access that is linked to an employee in a database, that's the case here. If I take a look at Mitchell Admin, the one I'm connected with. Oh, actually, Mitchell Admin does not have an employee. Oh, that's interesting. Let's maybe just check if it is the case or not. If I go there, no, okay, we have an employee, but I guess yes, it is called Antoine, which is myself, of course. And so once I'm linked then to one of my employee, let's say, profile, I can indeed decide to edit. Well, I can in a way, we'll see that just now. Let's say edit my own personal information. And for that, I need to dive in my employee settings and check the box employee editing here, which allow employees to update their own data. And when we say data, we mean as well the personal information of the employees. When I do that, your employees will then have the possibility, because of course employees, most of them at least, do not have access to the employee, let's say, application, except regarding, let's say, the list of the employees with the professional information, but we, let's say, no edit mode. But they can edit their own information by clicking here on their profile. And once you have checked these settings in the backend, you have no access to the private information tab, where you can indeed here decide to edit the content that is your own content, and make sure that it's going to work as well, and that you can update it as well that way. So, hello Marius, I see you in the chatter as well. Okay, so that's it. So that's it for the employee setup. Is it possible to show the product sold to a customer, and with that also show the on which sales order a product is? Well, just sorry, because I just need to read again the question. So is it possible to show the product sold to a customer? Yes, and with that also show on which sales order a product is sold. So here's mainly a question about reporting. First, well, if I go to a client that I have in my database, for example, DecoAddict, I can find like all the sales orders that are linked to it. Yeah, it's true that in your case, then I understand your question. You mean, yes, but Antoine, in that case, I don't see indeed the product itself. I see the sales orders, and you're right. So it's probably then not the best position to take a look at this information. What is maybe the best position to do it is to go in the reporting tab here to take a look at the sales app, and there decide to, for example, first filter on the client. So you could say, I want to take a look at my customer DecoAddict and add it. And then here you group it by product. And then, of course, you just decide what you want to measure. So it's a way, indeed, to see what are the products that you sold to a client for a specific period of time, and indeed have the list, the complete list for that. So indeed, you need to go in the reporting. But, I mean, here it makes sense because, like, you are, let's say, diving a bit into the details. That's probably better to do it that way. And about the second question, and also on which sale order a product is sold, same. Let's first go into the product here and take a look at the famous sold icon here. Yes, I think there the answer is much easier because you have by default on a product all the sales orders that have been used, let's say, to directly here get this list of orders that are where you sold this product. But I think it would be the same if you decide there, to look once again on your filter and look for the product here, acoustic block screen, and then you group it per order reference or reference, yes. And once again, so yes, you see exactly the same information. So I would just, let's say in that case, advise you to go more and more in the settings in the reporting and play with the tool, because that's where you get most of those information. All right, next question. How can I get my domain name? I guess you mean your own domain name, because how can I get my domain name? If you are using Odoo Online or Odoo SH, by default you get a domain name from Odoo, which is your database name.odoo.com. Of course, if you mention here the website domain name, so that's something that you get indeed by default when you create a new database in Odoo. But of course, you could decide to let's say link your own domain name to Odoo, or to benefit from the fact that you have a new Odoo license to get a free domain name for a period of 1 year. And for that, I'm just going to redirect you to a very well done documentation about the domain names that you can find on the Odoo website, in which you have actually two different options. The first option is indeed to register a free domain name with Odoo. And for that, if you go to your database manager on Odoo Online and click on the domain names, you have the possibility to select a domain name among the list of, let's say, of available domain names. And you can benefit from it for free during a period of 1 year. And after 1 year, we will, let's say, the supplier of the provider of this website domain name will contact you and ask you that if you want to continue, you need to pay for it on, let's say, with a certain subscription. That's up to you, but at least you have the possibility, at least, to benefit from that for a certain period to see if it is relevant for you. But if you have already an existing domain name, then you can just make the link with the database. And for that, I mean, what you have to do in the settings of Odoo is pretty simple. You need to do it both here on the, it says database level, and there, to link it. No, that's not what I wanted to do. But here, if I go to my domain names, I can here use my own domain name. Yes, there. And there I can just provide it, verify it's done. So that's the first step. The second step is to go also in the website settings. Oh, I don't see website. Just to refresh my page. Maybe it's just because it's not up to date. Yeah. And as well provide your own domain name there. That's what you need to do in Odoo. So pretty simple, not much settings to provide. But afterwards, all of the work that you need to do is on the provider interface that should be done. And especially here, do those 3 steps to make sure that it's going to work. So add a CNAME record, map your domain name to your Odoo database, and map your domain name to your Odoo website. So which are steps that you need to perform then in, let's say, your provider. And we can see here, some documentation related to some well-known providers, GoDaddy, Namecheap, OVH, to see indeed how it should be done. And if you just follow those steps, by the end, indeed, by typing your own domain name, you just arrive in your database of Odoo or on the website, of course, and you can also make sure that it's a domain name that you have that is displayed on the search bar. So that's it. So I think it's pretty clear. That's how you can do it in Odoo. Okay. Next question from Mohamed. How to record a loss amount on a customer invoice in Odoo, particularly in case of partial payment or bad debt. Okay, I think, all right, I think I see what you mean. Indeed, at that moment, that's something that happens not at the creation of the customer invoice, because the customer invoice has always, a certain value that you should keep in your accounting, because that's the revenue you expect from a client. So once again, if we just do an example here. So let's say this is our revenue, and we expect to have 1,000, for example, and we confirm. So indeed, so we expect to have 1,000 from a client, but indeed, for some reason, the client does not pay the whole amount, just maybe pays a part of it. So in that case, if I go to my bank and create here only a partial payment of 500, let's say with my invoice number 5, I can make the link in between this invoice and this payment in my invoice. You see that here, by default, you're going to say, no, okay, it's a partial payment. We still expect to have the 500 that remain in the future. So we keep the debt opened on the customer side. But if you know, and if from an accounting point of view, you know that you will never get that money, and so that you need to mark it as a loss in your accounting, then what you could do is to say, no, actually it's going to be minus 1,000. Yes. Like this. and then you mark the rest on a loss account, like this. Yes. I say because I'm not an accountant. I don't know exactly which account you should use. Okay, so that's something, of course, that to be checked again with the accountant. But I guess that's something that is probably similar to this. When I do that, if I validate, what is nice is that my bill, my customer invoice will be marked as paid, so I don't have any more debt regarding that client. But of course, in terms of accounting, I recorded that half of it is recognized as a loss and not then as a payment that I received on my bank. So yeah, that's it. All right, next question. Please share initial guidelines regarding payroll and CRM as well. I guess by initial guidelines is the fact of starting using the app. Yes. Well, that's kind of let's say a wide topic, but if it is the case, first let's start with CRM. Okay, CRM, which is a pretty basic application. So once again, I will not, let's say, repeat what you could find online very easily, because, for example, you know, if I just go on odoo.com/slide, once again, a very nice website where you can find a lot of resource. If you type CRM, you will find, you know, some very introduction videos to the CRM, showing you how to proceed step by step. So maybe here to have a, let's say, the more added value as possible, I will just show you what you should probably keep in mind while you set up your CRM to make sure it works fine. The first thing is you need to properly set up here your different stages to make sure that it sticks to the reality of your company, let's say in the real life. And of course, you can also know that you can create different sales teams. In each of those teams, you can have different members as well. You can play with the invoicing target. So in the general point of view, properly create your sales team and the stages that come with them. And then, yes, it just, it says a basic workflow. You create opportunity and you communicate with the client and you make them go from one step to another until it is either worked as one or lost. So that's, let's say, the main idea. What are maybe some tips and tricks about the app and what you should think of when you decide to install it? Is the fact that, first of all, you can activate in the settings what we call the lead stage, which is a qualification step before the creation of an opportunity. What is the purpose of a lead? The idea is to make sure that you don't create, let's say, some data that are not relevant for you too quickly, but you prefer, let's say, rather to create first a lead. That's, let's say, a draft opportunity, if you prefer, where you don't have, let's say, a customer that is already created. You don't have also a data that is directly visible, but at least your vendors or your salesperson, I mean, can go in the leads list and decide, oh, I think this one is making sense. Okay, let's try to use it, and you can convert it to an opportunity then, and then create the corresponding opportunity in your pipeline. So that's a way, you know, to filter and make sure that maybe spammings and other stuff are not coming too quickly in the opportunity pipeline. I mean, for reporting and so on, it could be pretty important. And I think the second step that I would advise you to do is to make sure that you properly know what are the sources of your opportunity. You know, is it just by phone, so you create them manually? Is it by email? Then use what we discussed together and, you know, create, use what we call this email alias, you know, linked to each sales team to make sure that all the emails are redirected to this email alias to create the opportunities directly. And also benefit from the fact that on Odoo, you have a website app that you can install along with the CRM, where you have some form to be, let's say, designed, and those forms can directly create as well opportunities in your CRM app. So there you can say, no, I want to create an opportunity, so that all the fields that you have on your form could be fields from the model of the CRM in Odoo, and, you know, you can directly then make it very suited to your needs, and once again, improve all your workflow like this. So that's it. So that's, let's say, a very basic introduction to CRM. About payroll, once again, just to give a small word about that, payroll is a very specific application that you need to be careful about, because you don't have, let's say, a lot of localizations available for now to make it work. So we have, let's say, the CP200 in Belgium. You have in a few weeks the localization for the Switzerland that's going to be available. But for other countries, it may be, of course, a bit different, and so that's important to to keep that in mind when before you start using it. because of course payroll is an app that you can configure, but that you cannot, or that you should not configure in every situations. For example, for African countries, because we have an office in Africa, in Kenya, more particularly, we have a lot of clients that contact us and say we want to make payroll. In that case, indeed, because of the legislation that is in place in most of the countries, it is possible to set it up, and to still use the payroll app. But I think before you start discussing about payroll, you need to make a proper investigation, proper analysis, and see if yes or not this is feasible in it. Then about the process, it's always the same things. You first create your employees settings, then you create a contract linked to each of those employees, and you link this contract to your salary structure type, which is, as I said, depending on your localization, in order to generate the payslips. But it's a very wide topic. If you want to know more about this and see a concrete example of this case, just know that on the 13th of February, we'll have a dedicated session on the Odoo Insider about the Swiss payroll localization. If you want to know exactly, okay, that's an example of an existing localization and how it works. And that's probably something that may interest you in that case, even if you are not from Swiss, because you will see what it looks like in practice. Okay, next question. Are there any applications via Odoo for small businesses? Well, I think maybe I don't understand the question, but here you should just keep in mind that Odoo has been created historically for small companies. So that's the target. So I would say that all the applications from the Odoo suite are targeting small companies. So that's really the principle of it. So everything is hooked first for the SMEs and make sure that every small companies can deal with Odoo. Historically, most of the users that we have, I would say yes, most of the clients that we have are small companies. I would say maybe below 10 users. So that's it. Then, of course, if you want to make sure that Odoo is suited for small companies, you should make sure that you adapt all of those apps to the need of your client. So it doesn't mean, for example, to do too much development, to do too much customization. If the reality of the client is that they have maybe not so clear processes, they want to make sure that everything goes smooth like this, and they want maybe to create processes by using Odoo. In that case, just try to keep things simple, keep things standard, and then you can, of course, install implement Odoo to make sure it answers the needs. Can I connect LinkedIn Sales Navigator's leads to Odoo CRM tool? From Marika. Well, I'm not sure there is an integration, out of the box in between those, let's say, the LinkedIn Sales Navigator leads and Odoo CRM. When I say out of the box, I mean standard in Odoo. But there is an app that you can use. Maybe what I should do is to go to a run bot to show you about this. But there is an app about social marketing. The only thing is that I'm not sure that in social marketing we have LinkedIn. But anyways, it's going to still maybe give you a piece of answer regarding that. So if I go to my social marketing, yes, perfect. Yes, and actually I have LinkedIn. So we can see here that I have all of my posts from LinkedIn that are created. And if I go there, I can, from some, let's say, things that are happening in LinkedIn, I can create a lead and then make it linked in a way to the CRM app. But that's something, of course, that may not be completely, let's say, relevant to what you asked me as a question, but that's where we stand for now regarding the integration with LinkedIn and the CRM. So, yes, an out-of-the-box integration to automatically create lead. I'm not sure it's something that we can do in standard for now. Okay. Next question. Can we upload GL-wise and cost center-wise budget in Odoo? I don't know what GL means. So it would maybe be nice to, let's say, here properly define it, because it's not profit and loss, not balance sheet. No, so yes, maybe just add more details. Of course, you can manage budget in Odoo. I just want to maybe show you that part before going to the next question. But if you go, for example, into the accounting app, take a look at here the balance sheet. You can create a budget. So my new budget 2025. Here, I can create it. And here on my budget, I can, yes, I think it's there. Yes, I can say what is my budget per account. So in that case, you know, if I take a look at this account, I could say my budget is this for January, and it's 2000. And if I save it and come back to my profit and loss report, I will see now my budget appearing on the right, and so a comparison in between my budget and the value, and see where I stand. The only thing here is that, of course, like here I created it manually. So if your question is it possible to import it? Yes, it is, because here you just have a specific model for it. This one, yeah.
GL stands for General Ledger.
Yeah, okay, great. That's the one that I was missing. I knew that I knew it, but okay, good. So yes, but just about this. So the answer is probably the same, yes, because here if I go to my general ledger, no, in that case we don't have a budget out of the box that's appearing. So maybe for that, a bit as I explained earlier as well, you may need to go in a spreadsheet to be able to generate this kind of report and create a budget along with it. And you know, to create a spreadsheet, you can start from the journal items in the pivot view and group your here account per then account like this, and then you take a look at the balance or your credit and debit as you want. You insert it in a spreadsheet, and then you indeed create another column with your budget and you compare it in real time. But if we use here the budget from the profit and loss function here, of course, as those budgets are part of the database with this model, we can import it in a way. And so for that, let's just take a look at the models that we have here. For now, I can take a look at the fields, and I have probably somewhere one too many, yes, with the account report budget item. And so I could just import the values in that model with then the three different information, which are my account, my month, my amount, and probably, of course, my budget. So the one that I want to make a reference to, in that case, my budget 2025. So yes, it's possible to import it. The fact is that in that case, you just need to make sure that you can properly design your import file and import it in Odoo. All right, next question. When you have Odoo online, do we have a system of the session to make tests without taking risk of breaking the production session? Yes, that's a very important question, and yes, you have. That's very good, because here I am on an online version of Odoo, so which is the same case as you explained. And if I go to my database here settings, if I look at the insider database that I just created, so this one, here you will see that I can duplicate my database. And when I do that, I'm going to create a testing database to make sure that I can indeed, let's say, duplicate all of my data, all of my settings, get an environment that's going to be, let's say, up during a few days, but in which I can do any testing that I want. Let's maybe do a test. So test database. If I duplicate it, insider. Great. So when I duplicate it, so it takes a bit of time. It's as if I was creating a new database. You know, so here, if I take a look at it, this one, I can connect to it. And as if I created a new database, I will have a small warning telling me, your database, I think, will be, yes, live for 3 hours, because I did not validate it by email already. So there you need to activate it by email in your settings. And then the database will, I think, remain for a period of 10 days on Odoo Online, in which you can do anything you want. For example, the emails are not going out because you have an outgoing email server that's going to block it. I need first to activate my debug mode. No. Like this. And take a look at my outgoing email server. And you know, here by default, it will neutralize any outgoing emails that I will always have a chance, you know, to I will always, yes, avoid, you know, having this kind of emails that can be sent out when I do my test. So that's the purpose of it. Of course, the period of time for the testing database is smaller than the one that you have on SH, for example. The staging database are up to date for 1 month on SH. Online it's a bit shorter. So you need to organize yourself and make sure that you can do it as you want. But that's at least indeed how you can make sure to not break your project database, especially if you are trying yes, because I was reading the next question. If you are trying to to make some customization, for example, with Studio, it's always better to do it in a testing database first. All right, next question. Is there a way to duplicate a line in an order? That's an interesting question. I would ask myself why, because it's a bit surprising to duplicate a line when you think about it, because it means that you want to have 2 times the same lines with the same product, with the same unit price, with the same amount. So it could seem a bit surprising, to think about it. Maybe there is a reason for that, but it's true that in standard, I think it's not, completely, planned like this, because at some point you will need to change the way your line will be done. So I think there will be 2 reasons for that. Maybe you want to keep the same product but to adapt the price. And in that case, it's probably just easier to make an enter. Yes, maybe not enter then. Yes, enter like this. Add again the product, so it's pretty fast, and just adapt the price accordingly. But maybe you will tell me no, but it's not for that. It's because you want to keep the same description. I mean, once again, it's probably easier than to go in the description to copy it and to paste it again there. But if you're in a situation where you have only the same kind of quotation that are quite long, and you wanted to make sure that you can more easily use them, I would advise you to use then some quotation template that are predefined with a list of products, and indeed you start using it, because of course it's easier to delete a line than to add a line. So of course you can start with a bit larger quotation template, and you decide to adapt it accordingly if you have to. Okay. Is there a way to yes, that's a question I answered. Yes, this one. This one is indeed a good question. Is it possible to assign a different email layout when sending a message via the chatter? And I'm not sure it's the case. I think that's by default settings that you have when you indeed decide to send a message in the chatter. If I open it here, so I can only indeed select a specific template. I will not have the possibility to see what is the header and the footer indeed of my email, because it's going to be added afterwards with a view, and a view in that case which is called mail. I'm not sure I'm going to see it like this. Well, I know a trick to see it. I need to type word by and look at the architecture, and I will see it there. Yes, this one. And indeed, that's the view that's going to be used with the header here, the body and the footer, to be added to the email template. So no, I'm not sure you have the choice about it. I'm pretty sure it's something that is defined at the code level, depending on the action that you are doing. I'll show that here I show about selecting an email template, but you're right. It's even the case if I decide to here put some text in it. So in standard, I would say it's not possible, but what you could probably do indeed is to say, when you send a message here, and you take a look at the messages that we send, especially this one, I guess. Yes, it has a specific type. It's a comment, and so you could probably, in a way, decide on your, let's say, your view template, that if the message is of type comment, you don't apply, the same format for the view with an inherited view. Why not? So it's an idea, but you could maybe try to create an inherited view, checking first if the type of message is the one that you want to target, and if it is, then you just decide to change the layout in your inherited view that way. But I think you still need to keep in mind that this will be the starting point of your message when you try to send by email, by in the chatter. So yeah, so to be investigated, that's right. But that's what I would start from in that case. Okay. How can I allow an employee to access the POS app without requiring an Odoo account? Should an internal user log in to the database and then share the POS link with the employee? Or is there a QR code available that the employee can scan to be redirected to the POS interface? Enter the PIN code and start selling. Okay, that's once again a good question. Here indeed, so I don't have the point of sale app that is installed, so let's try with this. So in that case, so you're right. It's possible indeed to give access, because I'm pretty sure you know it, but it's indeed possible to give access to a point of sale session to people who do not have access to the point of sale. So here, if I click on it and go in the configuration of one of my point of sale, I will see that here there's a way, login with employees, to select the employees that have access to my employee, let's say to my point of sale, like this. When I save, so here I was on the furniture shop point of sale. If I open it, I will have the chance to select, let's say, who I am with my PIN, or to get into the list of all the employees and select who I'm connected with. But indeed, what you said is what is important is the fact that here, oh, maybe I'm stuck. No, because I'm just going to refresh my page. I guess I will be disconnected. No, okay. Because yes, here, if I discard it, I just need to say who I am. Yes, that's right. So what's important here in that case is that you need to be an employee. You need to be a user. Sorry, it's pretty important. So a user to be able to open the point of sale session at the start of the day. Now, once it is opened, you're right. It means that you just create then a link. And to be honest, I don't know if it's possible. So here I'm just going to duplicate the link and go in a incognito window and see if I can access it. And I cannot. So what it means is that, depending on how your shop is organized, if you have different computers or different tablets, you indeed need at least one person to go on each tablet. On one of them, it will just, connect. It will just open the point of sale session, and on the other ones, it will, let's say, connect to it. So here, I'll just take this one, open the register. Now, for now, it's opened. If I just go in the backend, you see my point of sale is open. So if I go to another tablet and go in Odoo, I will have the option to continue selling and to join the opened point of sale session. It could be the same user, used on the different interface. It is not a big deal. So you can play with one user on the point of sale. It's completely possible. Afterwards, it's just important that your employees are able to identify themselves when they connect. And for that, indeed, as you see, we can assign a PIN code to each of my employees, something that we saw there, like this. We can here in the settings define a PIN code that they can use, to, let's say, identify themselves in the point of sale to make sure that they are only the ones that are using it, to record their sales and maybe also the errors that they could do, so that you know exactly who did what. But if there are several people using the same tablet, what I advise one of my clients to do is, okay, I'm Antoine, I'm using the point of sale now. Once I'm done, I'm just unlocking my register, and I just go at another place. Someone else is coming, and so you can just identify themselves. Okay, I'm Anita. She does her sales, and then she just lock it again at the end. That you are sure that every time someone is coming, he can indeed, just identify himself and make sure that everything is working fine. And what I did not show, but what is important as well, is the fact that here you have two different access rights for employee, basic rights and advanced rights. And a small pop-up explaining what they can do. Especially, I think here the advanced rights allow people to make some cash in, cash out, and allows them also to, let's say, end the session, and to close the session. But even if I think that the one who can close the session is the one who opened it. So that's how it's supposed to be done. But yes, so it answers your question. So you cannot indeed share the link. You need to have at least one person with access to Odoo to open the database on each of the different interfaces that are going to be used. And so, of course, if you have a very big shop with a very large, let's say, space, it may be interesting, of course, that everyone then can be dependent and can have their own user access, of course, if you have the chance to do it. Okay, I see here a long message about automation rule, I think. So let's try to see if I can help. So, in the multi-company environment, why is my automation rule for setting the company ID field in the product form assigning the main company for all record instead of the current user's company? Context, I am running an automation rule on the save trigger to automatically set the company ID field for products using the following code. Okay, if not record company ID, record company environment company ID. Initially, this setup worked fine and correctly assigned the user's current company. However, it is now consistently assigned the main default company for all users, regardless of the active company in the multi-company environment. Okay, that's a very good question. To be honest, I'm not sure I have the answer, but we can check together and see if we can find the solution. What you mean, and that's completely right, is that once I'm connected as a user here, I have always a main company, and that's the one that is displayed here, to which I'm connected to. And indeed, here, I could have it, to my Belgian company now, and so I move, to the second company in my list. That's my main company, so that's completely right. That's something that we can see. Let me think. I think if I go, for example, on products, that's a good example because it's yours. If I go to the debug mode, I can find it as well if I go, for example, on the record rules and see this kind of settings here telling me, I can only see the products that have a company ID that are at least a parent of my company IDs. And my company IDs as a user is what is defined here at the top. So yeah, that's something that we can know. Here, what I could try is to take a look at this companies, but yes, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to do it like this. Yes, I think, well, in your case, and you said that it doesn't work anymore, so I guess something happened, maybe an upgrade or something like this, and no, it's not working anymore. I think your formula is correct. The record company ID equal something. I mean, for that process, I agree, but that's probably then on the environment.company.id that you may have an issue. What would be nice is to be able to understand what is the field that we have, but I'm not sure I'm going to be able to see it like this. No. Switch company. No, I don't see the information linked to this field. There's the only thing that I know is that indeed on the record rules is just mentioned directly company IDs. That's something we could try. I mean, here, why not doing the test? So indeed, the field that you mentioned is this one here. So let's try to create an automation rule and see if it can work or not. So select the default company and save. Okay, don't need to put anything here. And I'm going to execute code. Yes. No, it would be if I create multiple ones, but it's probably not going to happen in that case. We can keep it like this indeed. So if not, record company ID. All right. Why not? Well, I've just tried something that is very basic. I'm going to put company IDs .id and see what happens. You never know. Let's try it like this. I'm certainly getting an error because it's not part of the variable that I can access. But if I test here, yes. And see technical details. Yes, so company ID is not defined. That's was clear. So let's try edit to add the environment options just before. Oh, yes. No. Environment object has no attribute company IDs. I don't know if the environment is a model that I can access. I'm pretty sure it's not the case. No. Okay. Yes, unfortunately, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to find the answer now. Of course, we could try to investigate. I mean, what are the variables we can access on the environment, let's say, of my models. I mean, let's try to just take a look quickly on this. So here, I'm just sorry because I'm thinking at the same time. Yes, it's probably going to be a bit too complicated. Yes, for me to answer that question, but that's a good question. Unfortunately, I would then try to understand what are the variables that we can access on the environment, let's say model. But I don't. But of course, it's not a model. But to try what you can use from there, and indeed try to find out what is the company that you can access. Something that you that I cannot really find like this. I was thinking because of also in terms of user and see if we can maybe start from the user that is connected. But no, this is user, this is company. But yeah, I don't know how to use it. Yes, but I agree that you can indeed use company ID. But I think that if I do that, I'm just going to reproduce, of course, what the person who asked in the chatter just did, and then I guess it's going to work again as he experienced in this case. Of course, we can try. Okay, let's try to. It's true that here, if I put IDs, if I remove the IDs, I will then come back to the case that was mentioned in the question. And so if I then create my test product, actually, I already have an issue. Yes, okay. In that case, I also get an error. So it's even different than in your case, because it said that the environment object has no attribute company ID. And on the rest, yes, record, model no. Yeah. And it's company alone, okay. It was this, all right. So in that case, it takes San Francisco, but as you said, if I go to my Belgian company and try to create another one, no, it works. Okay. Okay, so it works. Maybe in your case, that's because, I don't know, maybe you are just selecting multiple companies at the same time. So if I do it like this, so my Belgian company is the main one, but my company San Francisco is still selected. If I do that, no, it still takes this one. Okay, that's weird then, because of course maybe I should have started by this, but I just reproduce what you did in your database and I have maybe a different result. Maybe we are not in the same version, so maybe something that we can check. But yeah, okay, that's weird, but okay. But I mean, your process is correct. You should just maybe check in which version you are, and try to see if you are also in the same setup when you try to select the companies here. Okay, maybe one last question before ending the Odoo Insider.
Look and see if there's a shortcut.
Yes, maybe not this one. We already discussed that topic. Okay, yes. Okay, we had a product with several variants in import-export. So the variants that what you have on a product, I don't know if it is activated in the database. Yes, it is. So if you pay attention, it's a different model. It's something. So it's a table inside of your product model. So which is slightly different. So in that case, what you can do, you could do it. You could do it in 2 steps. That's what I mean. Is that you could first, let's say, import your product. So something that you certainly know about. So for example, here we can get a very easily file to be generated. If I go there and update, so I just get a file that I can fill in with all the different information, import it, and it will create my product like this. So that you get your product template in Odoo. And then once you indeed start assigning some attribute and values to it, there you are going to create some product variant. Yes, that's because here I still have my automation rules that is activated. So let me just deactivate it for now. It is there, archive. All right. So why do I do it? It's because I always prefer to show it manually how it's done before diving into the topic. Yes, let's say the import itself. The problem that you may have is that if you use it like this, you will a bit struggle, you know, because your file format will be very specific. Because, like, let's try something. If I, you know, decide to go there and say, no, maybe the gender pattern. Okay, test 2. Okay, so if I have many different lines, many different attributes, I will end up with a file which is not so easy to be used, because I will have, let's say, one line for the product and then one line for all the attribute things. Here, if I just insert my attribute and my values and I export it, I will get a file which has this format. Here, so one line for the product, and then I have many different lines based on the attributes I want to import. And so, as you know, of course, products can have different attributes, so you might have different kind of lines, so it's kind of difficult to generate this file, you know, let's say manually. It's easy to export it and to re-import it if you want, but to generate it at the start, it's a bit more, let's say, it's a bit more tricky. So if you want to do it in a different way, what I would suggest you to do is to just create a new menu that will bring you to this table that we have here. So for that, let's just check what is this table. If I go to my attribute lines, yes, so this is the model. So attribute, no, I just went one step too far. Yes, rated model is this one. So I just can here create a new menu that is linking to that menu there. Existing menu, attribute. And if I confirm, I would do the import from there. Because here it's easier, you have one line per product with every time the attribute and the values, and of course a reference to the product template, that is this one. And so that's where you can indeed decide to do the export file. By default here I see that I don't have the access rights to create new values, something that you can do if you go there and try to, yes, make it possible. I think it's just because on the view itself it is deactivated, but yeah, I can activate it with Studio in that case, to be sure that I can import it again. But anyway, that's something, yes, that a small tip I can give you is to reduce the issue in step by step to make it easier to be done.
Really easy question here.
How can we try the Android app? Yes, that's indeed an easy question. I think you have the possibility, it's an easy question, but I'm not sure I get the answer. But yes, it's very simple, but you can indeed, well, first, try. You can install the Android app on your phone, okay? Yes, on the Play Store. That's it. It's true that I was thinking about the fact that you can also probably simulate the fact that you have an Android app on your browser. It's a small trick. But that's something you can do as well. Same. I think you can find the answer online if you want to test it. But if you want to test the app, just install the app, and it will be done. Okay. I think that's it for this Odoo Insider session. Thank you to all of you to having followed this new Odoo Insider. And so we give us, let's say, a next rendezvous next week with Antoine Huvelle for the new Odoo Insider topic. Okay, bye-bye.